Astra Lost in Space is an anime that aims exceptionally high in what it intends to accomplish. We're introduced to a futuristic society, spaceships, anti-gravity shoes, wormholes. It's everything a sci-fi nerd like myself enjoys in our futuristic worlds. The show revolves around a group of teens trying to survive against the odds on their wit alone. Reminiscent of The Promised Neverland with a murder mystery spin and deductive aspect ripped straight from Danganronpa. The mystery of their predicament unravels as they planet hop, gathering resources to make a long journey home after being stranded in space. Word. Well, most of you know by now that I'm a big fan of anime from the 80s and 90s. I don't want you to forget that I do my damnedest to stay up to date with what's currently going on. This year has seen some amazing hits on the trending list with Dr. Stone, Demon Slayer, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and Rising of the Shield Hero. Even still, Fire Force is quite good, and Domestic Girlfriend was a huge guilty pleasure. Ever since I caved and watched Naruto years and years ago, after even more years of fear of association with the socially inept weeaboos who glommed onto that show like it was a cure for NEAT disease, and I loved it, I've always given the top 20 a hard look to find the good. Often I find myself pleasantly surprised. I thought Fire Force looked ridiculous, but it ended up being a lot of fun. So when I saw Astra going around, I figured, why not? And with what I've said of it already, it sounds like something I really liked. It should have been something I really liked. The potential was all there, the dominoes were lined up, but my best description of Astra Lost in Space is a sneeze that just won't happen. It simply builds and lets you down over and over and over. So let's get into it. Have you ever considered what makes you unique? What makes you different from your friends or your family or your parents? What about you is special enough to be considered a person and not just a copy of the people who created you? Have you ever thought about history, how it should be written or even rewritten? Whether or not lying to future generations for their own good is healthy, and if changing or altering the past can create a better future, is it worth it? There's so much put into the plot of Astra that you would expect me to have a goldmine of philosophical ideas backing this show. So here's my first. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if the original Digidestined got lost in space without their Digimon? Me either, but here they are. We got Tai, Matt, Izzy, Mimi, TK, Kari, Sora, Joe, I guess. Basically, our main characters are a bunch of stereotypes in color-coded Power Ranger suits. They were even at camp when a wormhole mysteriously shows up and sucks them into the vacuum of space 5,000 light years from home. Now, don't worry, there will be a spoiler warning later when I actually get into territory that I consider spoilery. You're just gonna have to trust me on this one. When I first popped Astra on, I immediately knew I was going to be in for a long first episode. Then I noticed that the first episode was double length, so I strapped myself to my chair to get through. We all know that some anime can be slow to start. I'm sure every single one of us has heard, give it a couple episodes, you'll really like it. Astra takes the cake. The first 5 episodes are simply bad, and there's only 12 total. The first episode obviously ends with them actually getting lost in space above a frozen wasteland next to an abandoned spaceship. Using the nav system on that ship, the smart one discovers a route of hospitable planets to hop back home. At this point, I was ready for action, adventure, maybe some are we gonna eat each other existential drama like in Fruit of Grisaya, but what I got was high schoolers have a wacky adventure on another planet. But then, it's discovered that this predicament wasn't an accident, no, it was a murderous plot to have them all killed, and there's a traitor on board who still intends to wipe them all out. This was a perfect setup for paranoia, cabin fever, cruelty, intrigue. So I sat down for another episode, and what I got was high schoolers have a wacky adventure on another planet for another hour and a half. While the plot seemed to get somewhat dark around the edges, the group decides not to pursue the traitor in their midst, instead hoping the traitor will turn to their side through the power of friendship. What started with hope for something more soon fizzled into frustration as the traitor barely tried to do anything to sabotage the group the entire time, despite having numerous opportunities to do so. This wasn't the first issue I had with the anime, but it did set up how the plot was going to continue to go. An interesting issue gets uncovered, and instead of the plot delving into that issue, it essentially sweeps it under the rug with a simple solution and very bad comedy. This happens not just with the traitor, but with a variety of obstacles that the group runs across. Another easy example is how they identify edible food. Each planet should be a struggle and test their ability to find things to eat that aren't poisonous and won't kill them. But instead of actually having to deal with this struggle for survival, the smart one just makes an edibility tester that can be shoved into anything, and it'll just tell them whether or not they can eat it. This This machine is a big deus ex machina that completely negated the struggle for survival. We never see the kids on the brink of starvation or dehydration, and the initial hopeless puzzle of food and water is solved with no conflict. The disappointment came to a head in episode 5, which is a fan servicey beach episode that just totally comes out of nowhere. And look, I'm a guy that likes my fan service. I'm even a beach episode connoisseur of sorts. But there's a time and a place for a beach episode, and Astra Lost in Space is neither of those. It's just weird, but then we get a taste of something good again. Also, I will mark spoiler territory about here. However, I super don't recommend this anime at all, so you might as well just let me spoil it for you so you're not wasting your time. On the beach, an altercation arises between tough guy and androgynous boy, and it turns out that androgynous boy is actually intersex. And I was like, cool, we're getting into some spicy, controversial messaging here from Japan. This is not a topic you see every day. I guess this show has some teeth after all. And just briefly, intersex means you have the same organs of both male and female in some capacity when you're born. Often children with this condition undergo surgeries as babies, obviously without their consent, and are assigned a sex by their parents, which many believe is a violation of human rights. Oftentimes these individuals wind up with dysphoric feelings about their sex as they age, and in Japan, to have sexual reassignment surgery, it requires the individual to first go under sterilization. It can only be done after you turn 20, and generally you want your sex legally changed before you enter the workforce, so there won't be unpleasant questioning. However, you can't get it legally changed without getting the reassignment surgery. This gives the average person about 2 years to make their completely life-altering decision before their brains are even done maturing. It's a huge LGBTQ issue, and Astra just sweeps it under the rug. There's so much freaking juice in this show, and absolutely no straw to be found anywhere. Some of the worlds the kids travel to were actually based off planets in our galaxy that may truly be habitable. The creatures that exist on these planets were theorized by leading astrophysicists and are present in the anime, but it's just glossed over. The plot is actually thick. The group finds out that they're all clones after a DNA test from 2 members shows that they're genetically identical even though they're different ages. It turns out that all of their parents or originals are world elites who created illegal clones to transplant their memories into with new technology. Essentially, artificial immortality. One of the elites even made 2 clones just in case something happened to her while the first one was maturing. She could use the second one to harvest their organs. Like, that's some pretty cool stuff. On top of that, almost all of these teens were abused in some way, neglected, forced into roles they didn't want, simply to prepare their bodies for the memory transplant so their originals could relive their glory days. But instead of going into any deep questioning about that, all the kids are like, oh, well, I feel better now because now I know why, my dad didn't love me. The group come upon another ship abandoned on a planet with a woman cryogenically frozen inside at one point. She had apparently been frozen for 12 years, but after the ship's chart is revealed to her, she finds out that the kids aren't actually headed back to Earth. They're on their way to another planet called Astra. Turns out this woman had actually been frozen for over 100 years and was from Earth, which in her time was doomed. So to avoid an apocalyptic meteor, wormhole tech was invented for mass exodus to this new planet Astra. However, this tech caused a nuclear war to break out, decimating half the Earth's population. So in order to avoid conflict like that again, the survivors moved to Astra and rewrote history, saying the World War III happened when the Cuban Missile Crisis went astray. And that's cool, but all of it is taken with a, oh my, kind of attitude, and then it just disappears more or less. I think the perfect example of this is when the Red Ranger loses his arm trying to stop the traitor from committing suicide because friendship. It's the only moment of the show where there's seemingly a real consequence for somebody's actions. But don't worry, Astra is extremely consistent. Now, because of the status of the kids' originals, you would expect their return home to be met with some resistance, some kind of, oh, you're criminals now, blah, 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 season 2. Like maybe their originals found out that they were on their way back and made some lies up and gave them to the press and, lobbied and sent some money, but no, nothing like that. But no, they're just welcomed back with open arms, and the show takes another 35 minutes to wrap up, and Captain Kirk, the new Captain Kirk, not old Captain Kirk, just gets a new arm. No harm, no foul. Not only that, but the traitor then becomes king and opens up the Classis Noble District and reveals the lost history to the world, and nobody tries to kill him. I was just kind of broken by all of this. And the thing is, I like stupid anime. To be honest, it's mostly what I watch, but I watch it because it's obviously stupid and fun. Astra Lost in Space was just stupid. There was so much there to delve into, but it was smeared by bad humor and a sense of campiness that truly and irrevocably ruined the show. And again, I like camp. Every moment of gravity was besmirched by an attempt at levity that came off as an identity crisis rather than comedy. And then the show actually has the balls in one episode to break the fourth wall and be like, yeah, you can have a comedy and a sci-fi anime, ha ha ha. And it's true, you can, it's just not gonna work if it sucks. The story is caught between a kid's show and a really engrossing adult anime, yet it fails on both ends. Imagine if the kids struggled with this idea of whether or not they're really individuals. Some are adamantly in one camp, whereas others, like the traitor, are adamantly in the other, and many are unsure. They finally make it back home only to find that they've been officially recognized as dead. When they return, it splits their society as to what to do with them. Some call them individuals with rights, others are saying they're abominations that must be destroyed. I mean, it's been done before, but there's new ways to do this. You can reinvent the wheel. The emotional toll of having others consider you so far below humanity that you're better off being killed than being left alive would shed a lot of light on the topic of individuality. Imagine the toll the revolution of lost history could have on the populace of Astra, finding out that everything you ever knew was a lie, that the atheistic world government was hiding thousands of years of culture from you your whole life. But again, none of this happens. Instead, the kids are welcomed back, their originals are put behind bars, and they all live happily ever after in an ending scene wrap-up collage that gives the Lord of the Rings a run for its money in the longest ending ever. Yet still, Astra Lost in Space is trending, and I don't know why. Apparently it follows the manga, but honestly, I find that it severely suffers from identity crisis and, dare I say, too short a run. There's so much packed into 7 episodes because the first 5 are wasted that there simply wasn't enough time to give it the depth and weight it deserved. All the pieces were there for a classic, but they simply fell apart. It's a series of dark and scary ideas wrapped up in this weird, feel-good anime setting. Its purpose is to put a smile on your face, not make you think, which is fine, but that's what ecchi is for. And I like stupid anime, but the anime still has to hit its mark, and Astra Lost in Space feels like it's being pulled in so many directions and not hitting anything. It has all the right difficulties, themes, and questions built into the show. It even has some social teeth, but it fails to actually work with any of them as real points in the story. I feel like some lame parent. Like, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. Or maybe I just missed something. I don't know. If you've seen the show, you tell me. Let me know down below what you thought of it. But for now, for everybody, I highly recommend skipping this cheese.
Sci-fi thriller gag anime, who knows?
What was that last part?
Hey everybody, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed our take on Astra Lost in Space. This is actually the first negative review that we've ever really given anything. Generally, we like to talk about anime that we like, but when you're trying to stay up to date on things and you waste your time watching a show that was really bad, it's like, well, am I gonna just stop and start over on some other show and hope that it's good and not talk about this one that I wasted my time on, especially if other people might be wasting their time on it too or have plans to waste their time on it. You know, sometimes you just gotta give something a bad review. Anyway, we got business to take care of, so I would like to introduce you to our ultimate lucky patron of the week, Marlon Gale. Marlon Gale, thank you so much for your continued support. This is a Patreon driven show. This is a Patreon driven channel, so anything that you guys do is super appreciated. It helps us get through and it helps make up for those videos that don't do so well but are topics that we want to talk about really badly, and it's invaluable help. Anyway, weirdly enough, you are looking at past Mike. Present Mike is in Hartford, Connecticut for the weekend at the Retro World Expo. So hopefully I am seeing you there and hanging out with you right now. It's a fun little con that I like to go to. The guys who host it are super good. Not an ad, not getting paid, just hoping that I'm hanging out with people. If you missed me this time in November, I will be at J1 Con in Atlantic City, New Jersey on the 2nd and 3rd. And that is also not an ad, I'm not getting paid. I just want to hang out with you guys and hope that you come and enjoy and support the cons so that they can happen again. Because if you don't go to cons, they don't make any money, and then they don't happen again. Then you don't have any cons, and that sucks. Anyway, guys, this has been a video. I have like 4 hours until it's my birthday, and then I'm gonna make everybody do what I want them to. Next month is October. We have some really cool things planned for it, so get hyped on that. We are going to be celebrating Halloween this year on this channel. Definitely check out our Patreon because there are going to be some really cool things happening there as well for the month of October. And of course, if you haven't yet, check us out on social media. It is Bonsai_Pop on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. We don't have a Facebook because Facebook sucks. I'm Mike. This is Bonsai Pop. Thanks for watching. Bye.